spilling out onto the American streets. And right now, quite literally, the entire world is watching Los Angeles and other American cities. A city that is under curfew, but a nation that continues to be on edge. And a federal government that is now doubling down on what it calls illegal immigrants. After days of protests against sweeping ICE raids and immigration crackdowns, the Biden-era playbook seems to have been tossed aside, and what we're witnessing right now is a Trump administration pushback, a pushback that is being done with full force and, of course, fully armed as well. And for the first time in decades, Marines, they are being deployed on domestic soil, on American streets, in Los Angeles, maybe soon in Texas as well. And the Marine boots, they hit the ground from Wednesday, joining the National Guard troops already active across federal properties. The order, coming straight from Washington, has rattled the very fabric of America's civil-military line. And what started as protest against the ICE workplace raids has now morphed into a coast-to-coast uprising. In Chicago, protests turned ugly. Bottles were hurled, police cars vandalized. In New York, arrests were made near the federal buildings. In Atlanta, chemical agents were used on protesters blocking a highway. And in Santa Ana, just miles from LA, it exploded. Rocks, fireworks, and the federal agents firing rubber bullets and tear gas. Officials say these agents were nearly overrun. Critics are calling it, on the other hand, a brazen abuse of power. California Governor Gavin Newsom says the deployment violates tradition, federalism, and even military law. Governor Gavin Newsom, addressing his state address last night, didn't mince any words. He says, "We will not be bullied into submission." And by the end of his speech, the subtext was clear as well. He wasn't just speaking to California, he was sending a message out loud to the entire country and a warning to Washington.
Before going further, I want to say a few words about the situation in Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of the place? Where I've deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to protect federal law enforcement from the attacks of a vicious and violent mob. And some of the radical left, they say, oh, that's not nice. Well, if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It'd be burning today, just like their houses were burning a number of months ago. Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen. Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy, and that's what they are. A lot of those people were let in here by the Biden administration.
Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted, and the only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started at Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not, because of the intervention of the federal government. And I don't think our city should be a test case, a laboratory. We didn't need the National Guard. Why on earth? What are they going to do? Do you know what the National Guard is doing now? They are guarding two buildings. They're guarding the federal building here in downtown, and they're guarding the federal building in Westwood. That's what they're doing. So they need Marines on top of it? I don't understand that. That's why I feel like we are part of an experiment that we did not ask to be a part of.
Well, you heard all those reactions, all this political posturing, even as disinformation swirls online. Local media tells us misleading videos, conspiracy theories, and AI-generated images are being pumped out at a dangerous speed, painting protesters as violent mobs, fueling anti-immigrant hate, and backing President Trump's militarized response. Sources say even criminal investigators typically focused on human trafficking are being rerouted to support the immigration and customs enforcement operations. A new federal mapping app is now helping ICE officials track down targets using data from multiple government agencies. A coordinated, aggressive hunt that's triggering fears of mistaken arrests and human rights violations. And as this firestorm spreads, a federal judge in California is set to hear the arguments on Thursday. The state is demanding limits on the deployment of troops, asking the court to restrict Marines and the National Guard members to only protect federal property and not patrol the streets as well. What began as a protest over immigration raids has become a national confrontation over military might, civil liberties, and the very definition of American freedom. As one protester was heard, it's no longer just about ICE. It's about how far they're willing to go to silence us. So the big questions that we're trying to look at and trying to decode tonight: how big is the political divide in the United States that a protest against immigration laws has turned violent and divisive in nature? Also, is putting soldiers on the ground to defuse a domestic situation, does it show that America, the oldest democratic nation, is really not in the position to preach the world on virtues of democracy? Look at this under the Make America Great Again prism. A nation that's divided, Marines on the ground, protesters in the streets, and democracy once again on trial. With me here on the broadcast is Ambassador Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States, and Nirmal Abraham, columnist and US expert. Madam Ambassador, let me get the ball rolling, first coming to you. And let's take a look at this step by step. Did Donald Trump's move to militarize this action in Los Angeles, did it fuel an already volatile situation? Take a look at the protests that were taking shape over there. This is unprecedented. It's a rare case using Marines on domestic soil. And does this deployment, does it protect people, or does it push communities more into this volatile structure that we've been seeing for the last 4 days, Ambassador?
Well, it seems to have exacerbated the situation. And we can see how polarized the United States is, because you have a totally different view coming from Trump, basically saying the city would have burnt down had he not deployed the guards and the Marines. And on the other hand, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, who's a Democrat, basically saying that this is a violation of California's sovereignty, and that he is going to sue the US government for the action that they have taken. Now, the last time that the US deployed National Guards without the consent or request of a governor was in, I think in the 1960s, when Lyndon Johnson deployed them in Alabama to protect a civil rights march. So it is very unusual. And more than the National Guards, I think the deployment of the Marines would probably break new ground. So this is something which is perhaps exacerbating tension and also playing up the political polarization in the United States, and the anxieties of people impacted by Trump's new harsh immigration policies.
All right, let's bring in, Nirmal Abraham, who's a columnist and a U.S. expert as well. Nirmal, how does one look at the ICE now leading this government-wide crackdown? We're learning that, all the other government agencies are also backing the immigration and the customs enforcement. There are proper pieces by the local media that say that with the pressure from Washington on the ICE department to ramp up their arrests, there is bound to be some sort of red flag. There is bound to be some sort of mistake that's going to happen on their end. And we've seen it time and again, right from Black Lives Matter, all those cases that have come to light. The action by the police comes first and they think about it later.
Well, I have a slightly different view from the introduction that you gave, Kabir. And the reason for that is, one, this was actually given as an election promise by Trump, and he said he will execute this. And the protests were kind of unexpected, but I find the timing a little bit dodgy, because for the last 1 year, the Democrats haven't really had anything to criticize apart from maybe the trade war. Now, right after the Elon Musk-Trump rift, there have been protests, widespread protests in California. It is not surprising. And one of the reasons Gavin Newsom, so if you watch the interview of Gavin Newsom that he gave recently, he was like, go for it. If you really want to, stand for your rights, go for it, is what he said, which is what Trump says. If I would have left this to the Californian government, the city would have just gone to waste. It would have burned all the way. So Trump had to make action, is what I believe, because Gavin Newsom in the past has always been in support of illegal immigrants. He's never really had much to do when it comes to the increased rate of crimes. And the reason I say this is because if you look at the data for the last 15 years, nearly 10 million people have actually left California. And this includes not just regular people. It includes podcasters, includes celebrities, includes politicians. People are fleeing California because the crime rates are going high, the taxes are going high, the number of illegal immigrants coming in are going high. The housing prices are going high. There are multiple reasons why Gavin Newsom is not considered a good governor. Even when protests happened in the past, he hasn't done much about it. So I think Trump had to intervene. The second thing that I wish to say is, when you call them the citizens of the United States, I don't agree with that, because you and I have friends and family who've been to the United States. Just recently, my uncle went to the United States. You know how long he had to wait? 12 years. And in the process, he had to wait in lines, ensure his documentation, fill out forms, ensure that he did not have a criminal record. And, all the due process, and that's how you become a legal citizen, unfortunately, in the United States. So when you're just encroaching and going into the United States, you're expected to be, ousted. You're expected to be taken out to your home country. I don't find it surprising, although the kind of violence that is happening is not something that I wish for or agree with.
Yeah, but one has to also put into context the boots on the ground with the Marines coming in. I mean, we already heard Mayor Bass saying that, you already have these 2,000 federal guards, the National Guards that are already there. Did you really need 700 Marines on the ground as well? What's your take on that, Nirmal? Was it needed, the 700 plus Marines, to guard the federal structures there?
Yes, I mean, just look at the pictures that you're showing right now, all the cars that have been put on fire, projectiles that have been hurled at people, taxis that have been put on fire, blocking of freeways. What has the California government done about it? Nothing. So 700 Marines, I'm not sure, but you really had to have national intervention when you see things like this happening, when regular people, I just spoke to people, Indian immigrants from the United States who live in California, they are scared. They really want this to stop, and they say they are of the same opinion. They say the California government would not have done anything about this, and we are glad that Trump is at least intervening. So that's what they're saying. So, and also when you spoke about AI generated images and videos, I'm willing to share real-time videos that I found on the news and on podcasts, right-wing podcasts, if I may say, where you can see clear pictures of people throwing stones at police cars and putting taxis on fire. So those are not good things to see from a citizen's perspective in the United States.
So the disinformation being, going out of spiral, that's what the local media is reporting in the United States. How true and credible is that? We also have with us on the broadcast Gulrez Khan, U.S. entrepreneur and candidate for U.S. Senate, a Republican primary from Texas in 2026. Mr. Gulrez Khan, how crucial is the Thursday's court hearing now on the limitation of the deployment of Marines and what all they're going to be essentially guarding? How crucial is this court hearing now going to be?
Kabir, first of all, thank you for having me on your show, and my good evening to all my co-panelists, and good morning to everyone in the United States. Well, first of all, these protests we are a civil society, and these protests are supposed to be in a peaceful manner. What we are seeing right now is complete vandalism and looting. And a lot of those protesters came to the United States, as everybody knows, illegally. A lot of them are from the prisons in Latin America, criminals. And under the Title 10, President of the United States, in this case, President Trump, has all the authority to deploy, of course, law enforcement on top of that National Guard and the Marines. So whatever he's doing, we fully support President Trump. And my fellow panelist mentioned earlier, had it been up to Governor Newsom, the whole of LA would be on fire by now. It's the incompetence of the governor of California, incompetence of mayor of LA, that this situation went out of control. So I believe the court system, our United States court system, the hearing you're talking about, it will, of course, be in support. I'm hoping in favor of President Trump, again, with his power through Title 10.
No, Mr. Khan, I'll tell you what, people back here in India, they glued to their television screens. One only has to surf through Instagram, probably scroll through it thrice before they land up on some video from Los Angeles or one of these protests for the past 4 to 5 days. What happens when the National Guard goes beyond Los Angeles? We're talking about Texas. Governor Abbott, I think he's already spoken about it. He said, I'm willing to deploy the National Guard over here as well. What does that mean for the entire world that's watching America very closely right now, and for America's, socio-political fabric?
Absolutely. Great question. See, we live in Texas. You mentioned about Governor Abbott. We are a border state, so we have borne the brunt from 2021 to 2024 under President Joe Biden's failed border policies, where we have a record amount of fentanyl coming in, our kids dying due to that, and a record amount of gangs coming in illegally through the border, along with other illegals. So, President Trump, when he says he's going to deploy National Guard, this is to protect the rights and the safety of average American citizen. A kid going to school should feel safe and protected, not have to go through some riots to get to school and compromise with their safety. For example, patient care. They're blocking all those routes where if a patient was in critical care, he or she could not reach the hospital. When Governor Abbott says, I support him, if law enforcement locally, wherever it is incapable of handling riot and vandalism of such a high magnitude, it is quite vital that the National Guard is deployed. And if, we need it in Texas or any other state, I would fully support Governor Abbott's statement and President Trump's, and at the same time condemn all this violent means to get your point across.
Ambassador, you've heard the two gentlemen. Many people here are also, now accusing the administration of weaponizing the chaos in Los Angeles to justify their moves and the boots on the ground. With overlapping agencies and there's blurred accountability, at least for the starting 5 days, where do you see this panning out and spreading out to? Ambassador, to you. Can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I can hear. I didn't know it was addressed to me. Well, I think for the moment it looks like it's spreading out to areas where there is a heavy concentration of immigrants and illegal immigrants in the US. So it's not just limited to LA, it is spreading to Texas, perhaps Washington. So you're seeing that this is becoming wider than it initially was. And there are two very different views about this, as I said. You have, on the one hand, President Trump asserting that, the cities would have burned down had he not sent in the guards because the state authorities were unable to get the situation under control. And on the other hand, you have the state authorities alleging that this is being used politically against them because this hasn't been with their consent or at their request. So it's very unusual and threatening to sue the federal government over it. Now, within the clauses of the US Constitution, it is possible for the president to federalize the National Guard or to use them in such situations, but the use has been very rare. As I said, the last time was in the 1960s when President Johnson had used it to protect a civil rights march in Alabama. So now for more than half a century, this hasn't been used. So it's something new, and it does rile up or at least shake the federal balance in the United States, which has been fairly very much on an even keel for many, many years. So this is something new, and how this is going to play out in terms of the US federal structure is something that we have to wait and watch. But it does reflect a great degree of polarization in the US, which, as a friend of the United States, I think India does not wish. We don't want to see the US mired in internal turmoil, which will undermine, to some extent, its global.
No, you're absolutely right, Ambassador. This is why we picked up this particular topic, because we've got so many of our loved ones in the United States. The Indian diaspora in America is huge and vast. We've got Ravinder Gadampalli, who's with us on the broadcast, Vice Chair, Wake County Republican Party. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Gadampalli. Where are we headed? Is this a constitutional grey zone? Because just like Ambassador was talking, and not many here back in India are well versed with the constitutional whereabouts of whether a president can, use the Marines for domestic issues or back at home. There are rare cases. Only in extreme situations should a president do something like that. So are we in a constitutional grey area right now? When governors and White House, they're clashing about who can depute and deploy the Marines and when?
See, Kabir, good morning to all the participants in this debate. Yeah, as I'm in a Republican Party's voice, when this situation is not under control by the state government. Supposedly, the state government and the California state government should handle this issue, because the people are coming out and especially they are all illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants came out and acting against the government. Is the federal government or state government, doesn't matter. When their activities are violated, and they are not participating as per the peaceful rally, it is acceptable. It is unpeaceful rally is happening, and they are looting the shops, they're burning out of all the police vehicles, and the state government, instead of acting against them, state government is supporting to them, because the governor is the California governor is incompetent to handle the state. Not only in this situation, the situation what happened in the Los Angeles last fire, they could not able to handle it. Based on all the situations, the government has to react, because the federal government has for the people, the people's interest and people's security and the country's security. The federal government has to act when it is going in the worst situation. Yes, Trump is, their election slogan is to send all illegal immigrants out of this country, and they're doing it. I see the part of their job.
No, but how you do it also matters. No, how you do it is also something that the world will constantly look at. It was a disheartening moment when we saw all those Indian deputies, handcuffed when they came back here. And of course, we also, welcomed all of them back. We do understand that there are rules at play, and Donald Trump had made that poll promise, something that, Nirmal had already spoken about as well. But I'm trying to understand, and of course, Gavin Newsom made the most of that moment, speaking to the entire country, made it a political outreach for his own self, the subtext of the 2028 elections. That's also people have been writing about that as well. But what next, and how is the ICE going to carry out these raids and these arrests is something that the entire world is constantly looking at. How with their knees right onto the on the throats, on the necks, how these apprehensions are carried out is also something that people are looking at. Those visuals are going viral on social media.
See, definitely, the Democrats and Democrat associated organizations are wanted to create the unrest in the country. Okay, so this is not just ICE will handle it. When the situation comes into the worst condition, definitely President will take the executive order to send the Marines into the state, and whatever is happening in all the these are all happening in the Democrat states, and Democrat supported organizations are doing it, and definitely this is going to be controlled by Trump administration. They will do it, and in a couple of days everything will be under control.
Okay. Nirmal, let me come to you for the final question. Apart from this political brinkmanship, Democrats versus Republicans, where is this really headed? We've got a lot of students in the United States as well. We've spoken about the importance of Marines and Marine boots on the ground. We've spoken about the disinformation, propaganda online, how much of it is actually credible, how much of it is actually real or not. But where is this headed? We're looking at 5 days of protests already, and things are just continuing to intensify. We're looking at various other spots on the American map where protests have been planned or are going to be planned.
Absolutely. And I think who would benefit from this politically? As you rightly said, it is going to be Gavin Newsom, because he's likely one of the few presidential faces of the Democratic Party in the 2028 election. So he will try to, in California at least, that's what he's attempting to do. But the other issue is that I feel like a part of this protest is actually orchestrated. Because there were, recruitment firms, meaning recruitment forums, that put out ads, and I can send you a text of this. And even on Craigslist, you could find this. 2 or 3 days prior to the protest, there were advertisements, attempting to recruit individuals who are physically strong, who could run fast, who could face danger head on. And this is real. And right after the protest began, the ad disappeared. So I feel like, part of it is orchestrated. The other part comes from universities. Unfortunately, Kabir, in universities in the United States, universities and public schools, 92% of the public school teachers are actually registered Democrats. I'm not even saying left-leaning, they're registered Democrats.
You're right. These are all, of course, pressure groups. The intelligentsia also has to be looked at. That might have played a major factor in at least California and Los Angeles, if we're looking at it specifically. I think we're going to have to talk about this a little bit more. 30 minutes is not going to be able to do justice to this particular topic. It is a poll promise, like you've pointed out, but how it is being carried out is something that people are constantly
But I think you need to also focus on the difficulties now with regard to legal movement to the US. You see, one is action against illegal immigrants, but at the same time, there are now millions of students in lakhs, I won't say millions, lakhs, because total is 3 lakhs, 3.3
lakhs of students
go every year now to the US, who don't know whether they can go to the universities where they have got.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So much of anxiety, so much of conundrum amongst the student community as well. I've completely run out of time here.
Kabir,
it has been a riveting conversation.
Kabir, I would like to
all the guests here.
word.
Mr. Gadampalli, I've completely run out of time. Mr. Gulraiz Khan, Ambassador, always a pleasure to have you with us. Nirmal, many thanks for those pertinent points. And Mr. Ravinder, many thanks for joining us here on the broadcast. We're going to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Top developments on the other side, but watch on News9 to keep their close eye on what's happening in America vis-a-vis these protests. Many thanks for watching.
$2.5 lakh strong legacy and counting. Join the big league with the XUV 700 with celebratory offers up to Rs 75,000.